Hi everyone, I'm Professor Joann Fletcher and welcome to the Immortal Egypt YouTube channel. And here I am in the wonderful surroundings of Bolton Museum. Well, here we are in my favourite part of Bolton Museum, I think, because it's the case relating to ancient Egyptian wine. Obviously a great favourite of the ancient Egyptians and a great favourite of mine. Now this case is really special because it contains some wonderful pieces. This is all the sort of the goblets, the wine cups, the huge wine storage jars dating from around the time of Nefertiti and her stepson Tutankhamun. So the things in this case are really wonderful, and I've got permission to actually go into this case and take things out. That's why I've got these wonderful gloves on. And this is perhaps one of my favourite things from the whole of Egyptian history. It's certainly hugely tactile, and it's a wine goblet. Dates from around 1300 BC, and it takes the form of a lotus flower. The petals are opening up. The blue lotus, which was such a special flower for the ancient Egyptians, and you can imagine the red and the white wines being poured into it. And we even have images of Tutankhamun and his family drinking wine from these very vessels. I love the fact that we have a single image of young Tutankhamun, and he's got a vessel about 5 times bigger than this, almost like a bucket, and he's having a real good drink. It's a wonderful little vignette of this famous pharaoh. And the other thing that's wonderful about Tutankhamun, of course, is that when Howard Carter was excavating the tomb, he found Tutankhamun's wine cellar in one of the side chambers. And this was a revelation, because when analysis was undertaken on these wonderful wine vessels, the scientists were able to prove, as recently as 2006 when the analysis was done, that Tutankhamun had not only taken the standard red wine into his tomb with him, but white wine. So this is the earliest evidence we have for white wine in ancient Egypt. And speaking as a how can I put it, an enthusiastic white wine drinker myself, it's wonderful to have this thing in common with the famous boy King Tutankhamun. We both love a drop of white wine. Cheers. Now in ancient Egypt, wine had a very special place. It was part of ritual, it was part of cultural life, and they just loved the taste of it, quite rightly. Now, back in the day, even before Egypt became a united country, sort of 3500 BC, when it was still single kingdoms of north and south, the northern rulers were importing wine from the Lebanon area, from the Levant, whose wine industry had been going for several hundred years already, and it's still a leading winemaker in the world. And the Egyptians realised the quality of this stuff, so its rulers in the north imported it in large quantities and used it almost like conspicuous consumption in a way to maybe show off to their subjects, who only had access really to homemade beer, and pretty ropey beer at that. A barley-based drink which had bits in it and all sorts, not particularly nice. And it was such a popular drink that the rulers in southern Egypt also wanted a share of this wonderful stuff. And so the rulers in the north would trade wine with their southern counterparts, to the extent that when the tombs of these early southern rulers of Egypt, going back to 3200 BC approximately, when these tombs were excavated, the archaeologists found complete wine cellars. And again, modern science is able to look at the contents of hundreds and hundreds of wine vessels, some of which were actually excavated only a couple of months ago. And again, more evidence of the ancient Egyptian love for wine, dating right back to the beginning of its history. And then by around 3000 BC, when Egypt had been united under a single pharaoh, these pharaohs decided we need to grow our own wines, not just import this foreign stuff, much as we love it. And so they started importing the small vine cuttings, and very soon, within a century or two, they'd established really fine vineyards all around the northern delta area, and these produced some amazing quality wines throughout the rest of Egyptian history, when wine was seen as something to be drunk by the aristocracy. Really only they could afford to drink it. And the rulers, each pharaoh and their wives and family, quite often had their own vineyards. And this is a wonderful thing, and we know this from all the details written on big wine pots like these, the sort of ancient Egyptian wine labels telling us when the wine was made, who made it, where the vineyard was, even details like when it was a good thing to drink. So you had wine for paying taxes with, or wine for rituals, because wine was used in temples a lot. It was an appropriate thing to offer to the gods as well as to be drunk by the elite and the royals. But my favourite are the labels that say wine for merrymaking. So that's kind of like, you know, the modern thing, you know, you have your white wine with your fish, but for the Egyptians, yes, this is the vintage to have when we're merrymaking. And that kind of sums the Egyptians up. They loved life. And of course, when they died and their tombs were being sort of packed with everything they held dear, that's why so many tombs are found with these wine cellars within them. And through the magic of modern chemical analysis, we're now at a stage where we can begin to recreate what went into these wines, what made them so very, very delicious and so very, very special. So one project we'd like to do is to pursue this and to get a real taste for the ancient Egyptian wines that Nefertiti, Tutankhamun and even the mighty Cleopatra herself liked so much and drank on a daily basis. Now, among the many wonderful things here at Bolton, we have these fantastic grapes. It's almost like a glazed tile, but in 3D form. These are bunches of grapes. And if you look really carefully, they've got holes through the tops because the Egyptians would make these and hang them in bunches from the walls and ceilings of the royal palaces. And we know that these came from the palace where Tutankhamun was born and raised. So beneath these very grapes, it's, you know, it's wonderful to imagine, you know, the famous boy king with his massive wine goblet that sat beneath replica vines in this replica vineyard within the splendours of the royal palace. They really are superb things, and I want a set of these for my house. And one of the other objects I've really just got to highlight, not just the size of this massive, it's like a dustbin, this massive wine vessel at the bottom, which is enormous, but it has this same blue lotus design, but right next to it, this wonderful thing, which you might think, well, it doesn't look very inspiring, but it's papyrus, ancient paper, and it's a wine receipt. This is the sort of, you know, you've bought your wine, you've got to pay for it, and this is the receipt that you got. And it's written in Greek, which was one of the main languages in Egypt in the early centuries AD and a little bit before that. And it's sort of not long after Cleopatra's time, and we know she was a massive, massive wine drinker. But of course, if you drink the wine, you have to pay for it, and that's what this is. And of course, this wonderful cabinet full of everything relating to wine and wine production is just one small part of this fabulous collection here at Bolton. 12,000 wonderful ancient Egyptian objects which you can come and explore. And I know you'll love it as much as I do. And if you've enjoyed this clip, then why not subscribe to Immortal Egypt's YouTube channel? Because we've got so much more to come. There's so much stuff lined up. It's going to be an exciting year ahead.